Susan Gordon, and I am here today with Todd Caldwell. We serve as Directors of Audit Services for the cities and towns for the State Board of Accounts. In this session, we would like to give you some information to help you get started in your role as fiscal officer. This is not an exhaustive list, but it is a beginning point. We hope that you will have time to review all of our training videos in your first few days of office, and we hope that by doing so, your transition will be a smooth one. The first thing you will want to do is file your official bond. We do have a separate video on that subject, and we encourage you to watch that. It will explain the who, what, how, and when of filing your bond, if you've not done that already. Next, you will want to gather information for all town bank accounts and add your name to the account, deleting that of the former fiscal officer. You'll also want to obtain online access to the bank account if desired. You'll need to change your email and your user logins. We do have a separate video on how to do that in the Gateway system. Once you have a new email, please contact communications at sboa.in.gov to get on the list to receive SBOA emails, updates to the manuals, and to receive the City and Town Bulletin. This is very important, so please do this as soon as possible so that you will not miss any information from our office. We also recommend that you bookmark the Indiana Code. You will be using that a lot. I can show that to you here and what it looks like so you can become familiar with that. This is the Indiana General Assembly website that you will get to at www.iga.in.gov. And once you get here, you can access the Indiana Code by clicking here. And then if you have a statutory reference that you want to find, then you can type it into this box. So we're going to be talking about the daily deposit law here soon. So we'll type in that one. And you can see that that brings up the statute regarding procedures for the deposit of funds. So we would suggest that you bookmark the Indiana General Assembly webpage just so that that can be easy for you if you need to reference a statute. We also recommend that you bookmark the State Board of Accounts website so that you can have the uniform compliance guidelines easily available, as well as all of the accounting rules that you will need to be familiar with. And we do have a separate video on our website that you can view at a later time. Finally, we recommend that you take a look at the calendar of duties in the Accounting and Uniform Compliance Guidelines Manual for Cities and Towns, which is in Chapter 7. This is not an exhaustive list of duties, but it will give you a starting point. Also, make sure that you can find your internal control policies and procedures for your unit. You will need those as you continue through the processes of your city or town. Once you take office, you will immediately be responsible for the timely deposit and posting of receipts. We will do more training on this in January, but we just want you to be able to get started now. You'll want to familiarize yourself with the processes used by your city or town to collect revenue. Your city or town should already have a system in place using the proper type of receipt form, but just in case you want to look at the prescribed form, it is referenced here for you. In many of your computerized systems, your receipt form will not look exactly the same as the prescribed form, but it should contain all of the same information required on that prescribed form. Indiana Code 5-13-6-1 contains the requirements for timely deposit of funds by a political subdivision. Cities and towns are required to deposit funds by the next business day if the amount on hand exceeds $500. Receipts should be issued and recorded at the time of transaction. Also, once you take office, you'll be immediately responsible for getting claims ready for the next board meeting. Again, we will provide more information in January, but we do want you to get enough information to get started when you take office. The prescribed claim form is the Accounts Payable Voucher, also called the APV. This is available for you to review in Chapter 6 of the Cities and Towns Manual. Most of you should have a claims process in place with the proper forms. The primary statute which governs the claims process is Indiana Code 5-11-10-1.6, which states that a fiscal officer may not draw a warrant or check for the payment of a claim unless there is a fully itemized invoice or bill for the claim. There is evidence of approval by the officer or person receiving the goods or services, and that approval is written right on the APV. The claim is filed with the fiscal officer, and the fiscal officer audits and certifies before payment that the invoice or bill is true and correct. This certification is also on the face of the APV. Payment of the claim must be allowed by the governing body. Funds must be appropriated and available, and that information should also be recorded on the accounts payable voucher. Some cities and towns have an ordinance allowing claims to be paid before approval of the board. Usually those would be recurring payments specifically listed in that ordinance. If you have that ordinance, you may pay those claims prior to board approval, but you do have to have those claims approved at the next board meeting following payment. You cannot pay claims prior to board approval without that ordinance in place. Each accounts payable voucher should have supporting documentation such as an invoice, bill, or contract.
If you don't already have one, you may need to establish a petty cash fund, as provided in Indiana Code 36-1-8-3. The fiscal body of a political subdivision may establish a petty cash fund for the purpose of paying small or emergency items of operating expense. A receipt shall be taken for each and every expenditure from such fund, and an accounts payable voucher shall be filed by the custodian of the fund to reimburse the fund for such expenditures so made. No reimbursement should be made unless there is attached to the accounts payable voucher the receipts totaling the amount being claimed. Such reimbursement shall be approved, allowed, and paid in the manner as other accounts payable vouchers. And the amount of the fund shall be established by the fiscal body of the political subdivision. The establishment of a cash change fund is recommended for each department of a city or town collecting licenses, fees, utility service charges, or any other cash revenues. The authority to do so is found in Indiana Code 36-1-8-2, which states the fiscal body of the political subdivision must authorize the establishment of the cash change fund. The accounts payable voucher should be filed by the officer or an employee who has been charged with the duty of collecting the cash revenues for the amount deemed necessary for presentation to the proper board. The amount of the fund must be established by the fiscal body. The accounts payable voucher should contain a statement regarding the necessity for such fund, together with the statutory reference authorizing its establishment. Upon approval of the accounts payable voucher by the proper board, the clerk treasurer would draw a warrant on the city or town general fund without appropriation, if for civil use, or the operating fund of the proper utility, if for utility purposes. Then that warrant is to be converted to cash and retained by the officer or employee in whose favor it's drawn, who shall be held individually responsible for the custody and safekeeping of such cash. The entire cash change fund is to be returned to the fund from which it was advanced, if and when it's no longer needed, and it must be returned at the conclusion of each term served by the person drawing the same. We wanted to provide you with some key contacts for common questions. The first one is the Department of Local Government Finance. They're best able to answer all budget and appropriation questions. The Department of Revenue and Internal Revenue Service can answer or address your tax and withholding questions. The Department of Labor can address personnel issues or wage and hour questions. The Public Access Counselor can guide you or provide information on access to public records or the requirements for public meetings. And finally, the Indiana Public Retirement System, or MPERS, for any pension-related questions. So here's our contact information for the Board of Accounts. If you want to contact Susan or myself, you can email cities.towns@sboa.in.gov or call 317-232-2513. An email address for our communications division and our Gateway Help Desk is also shown, as well as our website at in.gov/SBOA. We look forward to hearing from you, and we thank you for your attention and listening to this video.